Hey guys, welcome back to my second channel. I'm normally Blaire White. Today I'm Blaire Black. Make sure you subscribe to both. So I am someone who has definitely, over the years, been on record to call out things that are called transphobic but are just really bullshit. Like people who say that, I don't know, gender reveal parties are transphobic, or people that say that it's transphobic to not be attracted to trans people. That's all bullshit, and I have definitely been on record calling those people morons. And so I think because I have made a habit to really call that out, because I think it's harmful, I think that some people question if I believe like transphobia ever exists, right? Because I focus so much on the things that really aren't transphobic. Because I think it's important, and I think that having those things out there in the ether and part of the discourse really do harm us as a community. And so I'll see comments sometimes that are like, sarcastically, like, oh wow, wish I had this perfect life like Blaire, but she's never experienced transphobia. Or comments like, you know, does Blaire ever like go through anything in her life to deal with being trans that's negative? Like, and I definitely do. I'll just say that. It's not something that's common for me though. It's not something that I experience on a day-to-day basis. It's very rare, but it has happened. I am not immune to it. Every trans person has gone through it at some point. And so today I'm going to tell two stories of this happening to me, where I was definitely a victim of transphobia or hatred, or someone treating me badly because I'm transgender. One of them is a story that happened years ago, and it's a little bit of an old story, but this first story I'm going to tell is actually something that happened very recent. We're talking last month. So let's just jump into it and talk about the times that I have experienced transphobia. So this first story is a month ago. I was flying from Los Angeles to Maryland to do Tim Pool's podcast, which was really fun, and I loved doing it, and I love traveling, especially for work, and especially when I'm flying alone. It's like a very freeing feeling. But I definitely wish I had someone with me this time. So I went through something pretty horrendous at the TSA. Through the Chicago airport. I had a layover, I believe, in Chicago is where it happened, and it left me in tears. It left me shook. So I was going through TSA at the Chicago O'Hare airport, and people might not know this unless you work at TSA or you're trans. We're usually very aware of this, but when you're going through TSA and you're going specifically through the body scanner, the employee working the computer for the body scanner has to select male or female based on who you are and what they visually see of the person walking through. So if, I don't know, Jake Paul was walking through TSA, they're going to select male because they look, and he looks male, and he goes through, and they have a different scan for males and females based on anatomy, because it may or may not obscure a hidden, like, dangerous object being brought onto the plane. So what happens to me, and what happened here, is that when I go through the body scanner at TSA, they select female because that's what they see based on secondary sex characteristics. I go through, but the problem is I'm pre-op, which means I don't have female anatomy down below. So each and every time without fail, unless I'm tucked very tight, that area on the body scanner goes off. There'll be like a little red dot that goes off on the crotch area, and I have to be pat down by an employee. And I'm just going to first off say that, like, I don't have a chip on my shoulder because of this. I know that it's just one of those things that has to happen for everyone's safety. They have to scan people a certain way, and I don't know. I've learned to put up with it. I deal with it. It is what it is. I'm always very polite to the employees, and usually I will, you know, talk to the nearest female employee and be like, the reason this went off is because I'm transgender, and they will always get me like a female employee to pat me down because I wouldn't want a man patting me down there, and that's just how it's always worked. And they try to keep it low key usually because they know it's a sensitive thing and they don't want to embarrass me. But that is not what happened this time, bitch. It was so bad. So I go through the body scanner at the Chicago airport. They select female, my crotch goes off, I have to be pat down. And one of the most horrific things, embarrassing things happened. There was a male employee working the computer, and all of a sudden, in this airport, he shouts out in front of maybe 100 people in the line behind me in TSA, in front of all the employees, "Oh my God, it ain't no female." Like, he exclaims in an attempt to like embarrass me, and because he thinks it's funny that upon me going through the scanner, they discovered that I'm ain't no female. And I was so taken aback because he yelled it, and then he started laughing, and then another employee started laughing, and I'm like, how can people take the trans part out of it? How can you purposefully try to embarrass someone in public like that you don't know? And how can you purposefully yell something out about someone's body in public and think that that's like acceptable? So I'm sitting there getting patted, as I'm getting patted down, which is already a very vulnerable, like, not fun position to be having like someone like pat down your crotch and pat you down, like to have that yelled out simultaneously. And then the female employee patting me down kind of looks at me and kind of a look of like, I'm really sorry, but she didn't say anything with her words. I'm not crying, I'm fixing my eyelash. I cried then though. For a second I took it in and I tried to rationalize like, there has to be another reason why this man just yelled out, "It ain't no female," as I was going through the thing. There has to be a reason. And once I came to terms psychologically that there definitely was not another reason and that he definitely was trying to make fun of someone, aka me, the waterworks started coming. I started tearing up. I started being emotional. You know, I was flying alone by myself, so I didn't have anyone there to like, you know, say something or argue on my behalf or like, you know, and I didn't want to say anything because again, I am flying alone and I don't want to disrespect a TSA worker and then not be able to board my flight. Like it was a very vulnerable like position that they had me in. And so to make fun of someone like that, I just thought was disgusting. And so after they patted me down and I went through TSA, I remember calling Joey and just telling him like, you have no idea what just happened to me. Like it was so embarrassing. It was awful. Like I feel truly disgusting about it. And I started crying. And so I was sitting there crying in a Chicago airport, which is not cute, like not a look at all. But you know, I feel like that's a very clear-cut example of like being treated badly because of who I am and because of what I can't control. So it was bad and it took me back to a place of like being like a kid, being bullied, you know. I'm grown and I don't have people really disrespect me in public. Like it's just not a thing that happens to me. So, and I definitely reported the guy after that. I'm not the person to ever report things. I'm not the person to even like return food that's bad when I get it at a restaurant. Like I'm not the person to rock the boat because I feel like most people are just working and trying to get by. And I'm not a Karen who's going to be like, I have a problem to report and I want this person fired. And I didn't say I want him fired, but I definitely did report it to TSA that I'm like, and I basically told TSA, I was like, listen, you know, I understand that you guys are doing the best you can to make sure that everyone's safe getting on a plane. And, you know, I know that it's different for me being trans and that I've come to terms with the fact that I'm always going to get pat downs at the airport. We're talking every time, by the way. There really are no exceptions. But you know, you can't have an employee like humiliating people, regardless of who it is. You can take the trans part out of it. If it was like a woman walking through and the guy yells like she's fat or something, like you can't yell about people's bodies and try to humiliate them. So they took care of it. I don't know if the guy got fired or not. I even told them I don't want him fired. I just want him talked to and I want him to like change how he's doing things. And I want, you know, just more like, and I just wanted like some accountability that it like wasn't a nice thing to do to someone. So this second story is something that happened to me years ago. And I think I've told this story on maybe like a live stream or two over the years. But it's probably a new story to you. So I was working at a store in Michigan when I had a brief living stint in Michigan. I moved there for a guy when I was 19. Bad decision. This was at the beginning of my transition. I had not even popped a hormone yet. I was in the process of getting on hormones and I was in the process of figuring out how I was going to transition. It was like that in-between time where I knew I wanted to transition, but I had to get my shit together to make it happen. So I was working, it was just a random day, and I noticed that there were shoplifters in the store. There were these two girls that were putting things in their bag and they clearly had no intention of buying it. They were being very secretive. They were whispering and they were shoplifters. When you work retail, you can recognize a shoplifter from someone who just has intentions to buy it. So I don't know why I chose to do this. As like apathetic of an employee as I was, I have no idea why I decided to confront them. But I literally was so annoyed by just watching them like shove things in this big bag for like 10 minutes and like looking around for employees and trying to hide, like just so obvious. I literally said, you know, I can tell you're stealing, right? Like, are you going to pay for those? And instantly these two girls, they just went off. One of the girls looked at me and she looked at me up and down and she kind of got like shocked that she got called out, but then her face went from shock to like a smile or something. She's like, this is a fucking man. She just yelled. It's kind of funny looking back on it now. Oh my God. I think the reason it's funny is because it was like before I even transitioned. So like how mad could I be? But she literally, I was like presenting like kind of female and kind of, she literally yelled, "This is a fucking man." And then her and her friends started laughing. Like, they had no fear. Like, the fear of being approached by an employee who just busted you shoplifting, like, it went away because they were so amused that I was like a man dressed as a girl, right? And they made the hugest scene about it. It's something about making a scene. Like, something about transphobes, like, they love making a scene. Like, they love, like, making it so everyone else in the establishment or everyone else in the area like knows as well, and they just think it's the funniest thing, and they're just like rude as fuck. But so she started yelling about it, and other customers were looking, my coworkers were looking, my boss from over at the cash register was looking, and they were all just looking like, no, like horrified, especially like my boss and my coworkers, because they knew that I was like in the midst of trying to transition and figure it out for myself. So my boss ran over, and she's like, "You need to leave, you're shoplifting and you're harassing my employee," or whatever. And I literally, again, I just started crying. I literally was like, "I need a second." And I went into the bathroom and I cried it out. And my boss and like all the girls, when you work retail, it's like, it's a very like feminine, like girl environment. So like all the girls were like outside the door of the bathroom, like knocking, like, "Are you okay, Blaire? Are you okay, Blaire? Like, it was nothing. Like, she was a bitch. Like, that was so wrong. We're so sorry, all this." And I'm just like, I just need a second. I just need a second. It was kind of funny looking back on it. And what's crazy is that because of the scene that they made, it was like the perfect distraction for them to actually steal. Like, because instantly once they had started yelling that stuff, and then the employees were like tending to me, making sure I was okay, they just left with all the stuff and they didn't pay for it. So that was a thing. So it just goes to show that was at the very beginning of my transition, and the other story was last month. So it just goes to show that it's just a thing that happens when you're trans occasionally, and you have two choices. You have the choice to let it consume your life, let it make you insecure, let it make you feel like you are less than, or you can be like, fuck it. Like, fuck that person. I'm still cute. I'm still that girl, and it is what it is, you know? Hope you guys enjoyed these little story times. Hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you subscribe to this channel as well as my main channel. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, because I post on there way more than I do on here. So you gotta follow those to keep up with me. Make sure you subscribe to my Patreon so you can join my podcast and watch that. And I love you. See you in the next video. Bye, guys.